Ang susunod na programa ay rated PG. Patnubay at gabay ng magulang ay kailangan sa mga batang manonood.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts do not state or reflect those of the company and its management. Furthermore, the views, opinions, and insinuations made by the host, guests, do not reflect those of the show, the management, and the network.
Tonight, we go beyond the applause and the promises, from major reforms to the nation's biggest challenges. President Ferdinand Marcos's fifth State of the Nation address has reignited political debate, which promises will shape the country and which will remain rhetoric. This is more than a SONA recap. Good evening, I am Romel Miranda, and this is the PH Insider on TV. To help us analyze the key highlights of President Ferdinand Marcos's fifth State of the Nation address and its legal, political, and governance implications, we are joined tonight by a distinguished panel of experts. First, we welcome Professor Eric De Torres, political analyst and faculty member of the University of the East. Professor, welcome to the PH Insider. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, and the pleasure also.
Also joining us is Attorney Domingo Egon Cayosa, a prominent constitutional lawyer, former national president of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, and a respected legal commentator on constitutional law, public governance, and judicial affairs. Attorney Cayosa, thank you for being with us po. Magandang gabi po, sir.
Good evening, Romel. Magandang gabi po sa ating mga kababayan.
Completing our panel is Attorney Joel Arzaga, Professor of Law and Institute Secretary of the University of Asia and the Pacific Law. He has served as a corporate legal counsel for private energy firms, legal consultant to local government units, and was an advocacy fellow of the World Youth Alliance at the United Nations in New York. Attorney Arzaga, welcome to the PH Insider. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Romel. Good evening to everyone. It's good to be here.
Okay. One of the most talked about moments of President Marcos's fifth State of the Nation address was his update on the government's crackdown against alleged anomalous flood control projects, a controversy that stemmed from his now famous Mahiya Naman Kayo challenge last year. The President reported that contractors, DPWH officials, and even lawmakers have already been charged with hundreds of millions of pesos in alleged ill-gotten assets recovered in a surprising moment. He also publicly acknowledged the alleged involvement of his own cousin, former Speaker Martin Romualdez, saying the rule of law must prevail regardless of family ties. The question now is, does this signal a genuine commitment to accountability, or this is a defining political moment for the Marcos administration? Professor, let me begin with you. What is your reaction when the President mentioned his own cousin?
Well, it was really not a surprise because it was actually the public sentiment based on the surveys and based on the demand of the people that, you know, there's really unfinished business with regard to the accountability of the whole flood control issue or flood control program. But also we have to take into consideration, when he said that he did not even mention the name of his cousin, former speaker, patong-patong na ang isasampang kaso. So, ano rin din, just to also give parang in a way, certain degree of respect also na hindi na binanggit yung pangalan ng kanyang pinsan. But also, very notable is that the manner by which the people are also waiting for whatever reform agenda. Because binanggit niya lang, sasampahan ng kaso, yung ginawa ng DPWH na merong transparency portal, yung pagko-compare ng prices, but he abruptly transitioned from that to the issue in the whole Middle East. So talagang parang nabitin yung tao na ano yung reform measures na ginawa ng administration for that. So on hindsight, and of course both of our distinguished attorneys here can still provide some other insights.
Attorney Cayosa, kayo po ba tingin nyo it's more of a giving a little respect to the office of the former office of the cousin, or what is some sort of a deference to the family tie?
Well, maaring out of deference sa family ties kasi sabi nga niya mabigat daw ang kanyang kalooban. But to my mind, that was unnecessary. When you speak of corruption and you're the President of the Republic, as he correctly explained, di ba? Ako ay presidente, hindi ng aking pamilya o ng aking mga kaibigan. Presidente ako ng taong bayan ng Republika ng Pilipinas. So when you act and speak as the Chief Executive of the Republic at Presidente ng Republika ng Pilipinas, wala dapat yung kaibigan, walang mga pinsan-pinsan, at hindi na kinakailangan at hindi dapat sasabihin ko ano yung personal feeling mo. You have to be very objective and wala ka nang iniisip na ibang personal aspeto, kundi yung public service mo lang. So, tama lang naman na ginawa niya yan sa una. Maganda yung SONA address niya in the sense na magandang opening at maganda yung ending. Kasi yung ending naman, West Philippine Sea. At talaga namang lahat ng Pilipino nagkakaisa dyan. No? But if you look at it in hindsight, karamihan doon yung mga short-term band-aid solution. Hindi naman masama kasi yun ang pangangailangan ng taong bayan. Issue ng gut issues, issue ng bulsa, issue ng sikmura. So, bigay ng medisina, bigay ng pagkain, presyo ng bigas, presyo ng fuel, yung kuryente. So, tinugunan niya lahat yun. But unfortunately, so kumbaga, dun sa mga panandalian at madali ang mga gagawin, 8 out of 10 siya. Kaya alam kung susuriin mo yung structural reforms sa corruption, sa ekonomiya, sa social justice, yung mga long-term reforms, in-depth reforms that will last beyond his term, medyo kulang. Kumbaga, baliktad naman, 2 out of 10 yon. Siguro dahil alam na rin niya ay last 2 years na lang niya. At hindi na nga niya tinalakay kung ano yung nagawa niya from year 1 up to year 4. Kasi yun usually ang purpose ng ng SONA, na mag-report ka naman, ano na ba yung nagawa mo mula nung simula. Ito, nag-focus na lang siya dun sa, ito pinaka-immediate muna. Kasi may crisis tayo, hirap ang buhay. So, kinakailangan i-address niya yung man on the street. At nagawa naman niya yun.
Thank you, Attorney. Attorney Joel, is this a defining, another defining moment, or should be a stronger affirmation of that commitment against corruption po?
Well, I'd like to give the benefit of the doubt to our president. Some say that he said it simply because yun yung elephant in the room, whether or not he will address the corruption scandal and particularly address the looming charges against Speaker Romualdez. The way I saw it, he sounded sincere, even a little bit hurt, no? Sabi niya, masakit mang sabihin. Ngunit, what I found striking about the way he said it, he seemed resolute. Na talagang hindi niya ito pababayaan at tututukan niya yung paglaban sa corruption. So it's good that the president, in a way, is strategically positioning himself as a crusader against corruption. And I think it will help his legacy. It will help the legacy of his family. I think ultimately what he wants is to redeem the dark way in which history views his family. And this is an opportunity, a golden opportunity for him to do that. So sana ay totoong sincero yung mga sinasabi ng ating Pangulo. But until we see big names behind bars, I think these are all promises that have to be fulfilled.
Attorney Cayosa, how do you assess po the way the government is actually investigating and filing cases as regards the flood control scam po?
Well, compared to past administration, ito naman, klaro na marami ng nakasuhan. At
Yung pong sinasabing mga big fish po ba?
Hindi,
Na-consider
dalawang
po?
senador na.
Opo.
Isang secretary ng DPWH.
Opo.
Matataas to. Tinanggal na niya yung executive secretary, yung DBM secretary. Kaya lang DBM secretary, binalik na chairman ng government bank. So, marami naman na at meron ng mga congressman. So, but ang napansin ko lang, ang corruption kasi, hindi lang yung pagsasampa ng kaso. As a matter of fact, from the point of view of the president, yung pagsasampa ng kaso sa korupsyon, trabaho yan ng ombudsman, which is
Opo.
an independent body. Wala siyang control talaga dyan.
Opo.
Pagdating naman dun sa Sandigan Bayan, Supreme Court, wala siyang control.
Lalo na po
Judiciary
ron,
yan.
lalo na po doon.
So, hindi niya tayo ma-assure anong maging resulta niyan. Yung pag-iimbestiga ng flood control na big time na skandalo ito, wala rin sa control niya. Kongreso ito eh. Pero meron siyang control, may makontrol sana at marami siyang magagawa na mukhang hindi niya nabanggit at hindi na nakikita. Ano yon? Yung administrative disciplinary sanction. Kasi yan, kontrolado ng chief executive.
At mas immediate po, no?
Mas immediate yan, summary, at ang ebidensya diyan hindi proof beyond reasonable
Opo.
doubt, mabilisan.
Opo.
At siya mismo ang nagko-control diyan at the end of the day.
Opo.
Lahat sumusunod sa kanya. Kaya naman niyang isuspend, tanggalin administrative lahat ng mga involved na DPWH kasi wala namang corruption dun sa congressional level kung hindi pumapayag din ng DPWH district engineer. Pero yung district engineer din, pumapayag kasi ang naglagay sa kanya doon yung congressman.
Opo.
So, pero kaya niya sanang sibakin lahat mga yan eh.
Sir Eric, doon po sa survey po na lumabas, no, na despite po doon sa problema ng unemployment, ng kahirapan, ng matataas na presyo ng bilihin, lumabas pa rin po na malaki po yung attention ng mga tao doon sa anti-corruption. Bakit po kaya sa tingin nyo ganun ang pananaw ng mga na-survey po na ito?
Kasi tingin ko, sa perception ng tao, kulang. Ang ganda nung binanggit ni Attorney Cayosa kanina, dadagdagan ko lang, no? May distinction dapat yung administrative case kasi yun yung pwede niyang gawin eh. Secondly, we were hoping na sana sinabi niya na sa natitirang oras ng aking termino, hahabulin natin. Hindi tayo titigil. At sa mga susunod na panahon, hindi na natin papabayaan na mangyari ito ulit. Yun yung inaantay siguro ng taong bayan. Plus, ano yung reform measures? Sino yung nasampahan ng kaso? Hanggang kay Secretary Bonoan. But what about all other individuals involved on the higher ups within the office of the President, perhaps, for that matter, that there are some personalities involved? What happened to them? And yung ganung bagay, regardless, optics-wise, hindi siya maganda eh. So it creates doubt, it questions credibility of the whole process, even if there's really, objectivity on his part. And, to be fair, talagang may pagsusumikap naman. But the question is it enough? Would it be enough, basically, to really ensure the public?
Kaya sa, the one of the things na nag-i-stand out po dito, no? Siyempre po yung mga tao, just in the recent past po, laging merong comparison, no? Not just on the substance of what he said, but also in the manner that he said it, no? Malayo siya siyempre kay Presidente Duterte na talagang very confrontational. But the President has a very different character. Eh. Non-confrontational, very calibrated ang language, no? In fact, kaya nga siguro yung ibang tao na who got used to the president or to President Duterte's very strong and sometimes harsh language, no, is different. So, do you think that's also important to delivering the SONA speech po?
Well, I think that's very important. Hindi lang ang mga substance, kundi yung tone and manner of delivery. At ako, tama lang at magandang pansinin natin yung stark difference between his style and former President Duterte.
Opo.
Sapagkat noon nanonormalize yung pagmumura eh.
Opo.
Yung bastusan, brasuhan. Because siguro yung taong bayan, sawang-sawa na dun sa mga magagandang salita na wala namang nangyayari. Kaya nga, kung minsan kahit patayan na yan, okay na lang sa kanila because of their frustration. But, what did it bring our country? Kahihiyan sa international community, yung ating presidente nakakulong ngayon sa ICC, Crimes Against Humanity. So, hindi lang kahihiyan yan ni President Duterte, kahihiyan ng ating justice system. Kaming mga abogado na dito sa bansa natin, hindi gumugulong, hindi napapanagot yung mga ganyan.
There was a time, no? There was a period of time na makukonsider po because of that case na parang may naging problema yung yung justice system, not the judicial.
Of course, at karga namin lahat ng burden. Damay-damay kaming lahat. So, maganda na mas mahinahon siya para maibalik din dun sa pagka-statesman.
Opo.
Kasi as a political leader, hindi lang namang executioner ka o executive ka. Dapat diplomat ka rin.
In relation with that, Attorney Joel, I think tama po yung sinasabi ni Attorney Cayosa, no? Na yung reform talaga. Pero hindi po ba dapat yan, sir, sa tingin natin nagsimula po yan sa bahay, sa paaralan, sa places of work natin, at saka po doon sa gobyerno. Kasi lagi po tayong tumitingin doon sa pinakaitaas kaagad, no? Pero somehow, along the way, yung pong ating lipunan, may mga maliliit na pocket of corruption or forms of corruption na parang naniniglect na lang po natin. Tama po ba? Kaya po mataas po yung ano. And I think the President has somehow addressed that when he said na, hindi tayo mga sinungaling, magaganda ang ano natin dapat. No? I think, do you agree with
I
that?
agree with you, Romel. No? I think this endeavor to be honest, to be dignified and respectful, as the President said, this is not just a whole-of-government approach, but this is a whole-of-nation effort. Nagsisimula sa pamilya, nagsisimula sa barangay, sa eskwelahan at kung saan-saan pa. And I think for this to really be realized and to take root, it's important for us to look to our leaders.
Opo.
That's why hats off to our President. No, he, as Attorney Egon said, he acts in a dignified manner, statesmanlike, and someone who commands respect. So this is something that perhaps all of the Philippine society, starting with the families, can take as a jump-off point for hopefully a real and lasting change in Philippine society.
And this is something, Attorney Cayosa, I just want to, before we take a break, this is something I wanted to ask you. The State of the Nation address, people are expecting that the President would really say something about what's going on, what's happening in our country. But I would also look at it as an opportunity for us as a people to really reflect on what is the state of the nation really, from our own perspective, from our own experiences po, no?
Tama yung nabanggit ni Attorney Joel na whole-of-nation approach.
Opo.
But yung whole-of-nation kasi, mas malaki yung private sector kesa sa gobyerno eh.
Opo.
So, hindi rin natin dapat i-demand sa presidente na i-command niya yung buong nation. Kasi nga, sa gobyerno lang siya eh. Yung mga institution gaya ng mga paaralan, mga simbahan, mass media, mga professional kagaya namin. Ito yung gumagawa ng social values, moral values natin. Hindi naman pwedeng i-command ng presidente yan. Kaya nga, maganda yung example niya na he's a dignified president at the very least. Na
Correct
hindi na ho yung bardagulan ang usapan dito. Nagsisimula doon. Bakit? Kahit kasi gagawin natin sa baba, loob ng pamilya, sa barangay, sa eskwelahan, yung molding, ang lakas ng power of example eh.
Correct.
Kung nakita nila yung presidente na ganon, kahit anong ituro ng teacher sa kanila, ng magulang, yun yung nakikita na araw-araw
Correct
sa
po.
Yung mga senador natin na nagkakabastusan, di ba? Nagsisinungaling, kung ano-ano. The power of example, unfortunately, is a very big block in molding the social fabric and moral fabric of the country. So kahit tayong ordinaryong mamamayang Pilipino, tinuturuan natin within our own smaller sphere. Pag nanood ng television, yun ang nakikita nila.
Correct.
I agree, malaki pa rin ang ating katungkulan, ating obligasyon, pero those who are given more power, those who are given public funds and public trust, mas malaki ang responsibilidad nila.
Salamat po, Attorney. Well, the discussion doesn't end there. After the break, we shift our focus to energy and electricity as President Marcos pushes for major power reforms that could directly impact millions of Filipino consumers. Stay with us. The PH Insider on TV will be right back.
Narito na ang schedule ng inyong paboritong Lotso Games mula sa Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office.
Araw-araw ang draws ng 2D Lotto at 3D Lotto tuwing alas 2 ng hapon, alas 5 ng hapon at alas 9 ng gabi.
At pagsapit ng alas 9 ng gabi, sasamahan pa yan ng Big Time Games. Tuwing Lunes, magpapapremyo rin ang 4D Lotto, Mega Lotto 645 at Grand Lotto 655.
Pagdating ng Martes, magdadala ng panalo ang 6D Lotto, Lotto 642, Super Lotto 649 at Ultra Lotto 658.
Tuwing Miyerkules, umaarangkada ang papremyo ng 4D Lotto, Mega Lotto 645 at Grand Lotto 655.
Pagsapit ng Huwebes, tutok na sa 6D Lotto, Lotto 642 at Super Lotto 649.
Mapapanood naman tuwing Biyernes ang pagbola ng winning numbers ng 4D Lotto, Mega Lotto 645 at Ultra Lotto 658.
At tuwing Sabado, abangan ang 6D Lotto, Lotto 642 at Grand Lotto 655.
Sigurado namang pasasayahin ang araw ng linggo ng exciting prizes ng Super Lotto 649 at Ultra Lotto 658.
Sali na dahil baka ikaw na ang susunod na mananalo
At maging Lotto Milyonaryo. Araw-araw, let's play Lotto! Dito lang yan sa DATV at IBC.
In his latest SONA, President Marcos proposed major power reforms, including the removal of system loss charges, the promotion of solar energy through the Sariling Kuryente Act, and the possible revival of nuclear energy. The key question is, will these measures finally lead to lower electricity rates and a more secure energy future of the Philippines? I'll start with Attorney Joel. No? Attorney, sabi daw po, pagka yung mga tao daw pong hindi tumitingin sa nakaraan, most likely makukumit po niya yung pagkakamali in the future. No? So, tingnan po natin yung EPIRA law. So, what actually went wrong, if there's any po, doon po sa EPIRA law? Because one of the major promises of the EPIRA law is the lowering of electricity rates. And yet, 25 years after, hindi lang po na doble, mahigit halos na triple po yung electricity rate. What is the reason for that po?
Well, I think, the electric industry is very technical. No?
Opo.
Yung ating energy, power industry, technical yan. And not everyone understands that. So I think when it was drafted and passed into law, it was done so without a deep appreciation of how the energy industry worked. And so, I think hindi naging akma at sakto yung mga provisions ng EPIRA para mapalaganap yung objectives nito, which is the total electrification of the country, and then to ensure that there's stable and clean energy for all Filipinos. And to be fair naman, this is not an endeavor that can be achieved easily. Especially given the geographical status of the Philippines, the fact that we are 7,000 islands, medyo mahirap talaga to expect total electrification within a short span of time. That's why what President Marcos said, that now the country, the Filipino people, demands the amendment of the EPIRA. I think that's a welcome message, welcome development that will be accepted and will be supported by all industry players mula sa generation, transmission, distribution, and then of course, most importantly, para sa mga end users na dapat ay nakakatanggap ng stable, murang enerhiya. And at this point, tayo na lang siguro sa mundo yung nakakaranas pa ng brownout maya't maya. I'm from Palawan. Palawan is considered a smog area. And until today, despite all the tourism activities in Palawan and all the supposed income that it generates, meron pa ding rotational brownouts, which I think is no longer acceptable at this day and age.
Pong kakulangan doon o pagkakamali is that yung pong pag wala pong incentive doon po sa mga tawag dito, sa mga generator, transmitter, at saka po yung distributor, natanggalin yung systems loss kasi binibigay naman sa kanila eh.
Correct.
So wala kang effort talaga na, sige, i-minimize natin. No? Because you see, sir, you generate, no? Up to the point of generation towards transmission, you have cost. Doon po mismo sa transmission line, yes, there is systems loss. Loss because of the cost of transmission of electricity. But on the distribution side, yung pati yung pilferage, nakabundle po doon doon sa systems loss. And that's what makes it ridiculous for me. For me po, by the way, attorney, I'm an electrical engineer. No, it's kind of ridiculous. Why? Walang incentive sa Meralco, walang disincentive sa kanya na hindi siya gumawa, no? Na i-minimize niya yung mga losses. Kasi babayaran naman siya eh. So, and if you look at the rate, no? Tama si Attorney Cayosa, if you look at the law, 14 nag-start sa 12 hanggang umabot ng 14 after nung 5th year ata. And then for other cooperatives, they're up to 22. But there is a provision there that says na after mong ma-recoup yung systems loss, dapat tumigil ka na or yung iba, ibalik mo na doon sa customer. Tama po ba ito, Attorney Joel?
Actually, we're probably the only country in the world that allows systems loss to be borne by the consumers.
Yeah, which is really, for me, it's not just sad, it's ridiculous.
And there are studies that say that if these companies are made to understand that they will bear the losses, it reduces their inefficiencies.
Yes, opo.
So I think not only is it logical, but it's a matter of justice that whoever caused the loss should be the one to bear the expenses. And here, it's not just unfair; it's almost unjust, na for the consumers to be the one to pay for that.
Opo, I think tama po. Sige,
Sir
Professor.
Romer, just to add, another key consideration is the monopoly of the energy sector. It all boils down to that. We
Of
can
course,
talk all day of
some of
that.
the players would deny that.
Of
that
course,
there is,
pero because they're already cooperatives. But kanino ba
It's
sila
an oligopoly.
isang kumpanya rin lang din naman. When you go to other countries, for example, the competition is there. The competition in the market for the energy sector is not monopolized by one particular company. Maraming pwedeng pagpilian, pagandahan ng serbisyo. And moving forward, how do we break that cycle of, the oligarchs in the country? Ang daling sabihin na i-abolish tong systems loss. You're talking here of one particular producer of, energy. Baka po pwede rin din long term. Nandyan yung promise ng solar, pero pag nag-compete na si solar at unti-unti na nakikita yung benefit niyan, baka ma-disincentivize na yung Meralco na imbis na babayaran mo, mag-shift na naman yung policy. So, again, we have to, another idea is, perhaps we should really open the economy. Remove that 60-40 provision. And of course, another avenue, very debatable, but it cuts across industries. It provides other investments and foreign direct investments, attorney, for that matter. You look at Vietnam. After 10 years of a decade of Vietnam War, look at our Southeast Asian countries. While the Philippines put that 60-40 provision in the 1987 Constitution, Vietnam, through their Doi Moi, opened up, and you look at the benefit that is, that provided for Vietnam. So, we're hoping na sana buksan na lang yung economy at tanggalin yung provision.
Let's transition a little. Attorney Joel, as far as solar is concerned, and of course the call to revive the use of alternative source of energy like nuclear, ano po ang impression po or reaction po siguro sa tingin nyo ng mga naging kliyente nyo sa ganito po?
Well, those companies, those clients na siguro also Attorney Egon has that deal with solar, they're very happy. In fact, they're quite eager to invest in the Philippines to put up solar panels. Just recently I was in Palawan, going around hospitals because there's a Chinese investor that wants to put up solar panels free of charge for the government. Meaning, eventually they'll have to recover the investment, pero there's no initial payment. So parang it's just a matter of the government allowing this particular company to install the solar panels, and then the result would be less cost of energy for the government, which is of course a welcome development. But also, titingnan natin realistically, it sounds hopeful, but realistically, there are a lot of bureaucratic challenges of getting into the energy field, energy business here in the Philippines. Napakadaming permit, DOE, SEC, BIR, and
Post
then
DNR, no?
DNR also, and then the LGU. So parang we see that there's an opportunity, but getting there is not as simple as getting from point A to point B. There are a lot of hurdles, a lot of challenges, and I hope that the government realizes that there are a lot of investors from China, from the US, from elsewhere, but we need to make business easier for them, because ultimately the ones who will benefit would be the Filipino people.
But we have seen great efforts regarding this source of energy, no, Attorney. I've seen one in Negros Occidental, a very big solar farm. There's also one in Laguna by one of the big companies here in the Philippines. And of course, there are other efforts by the local government units. Small but modest effort, but I think they're going towards the right path, no? But as you mentioned nga po, government sometimes, no, specifically in this country, instead of aiding, facilitating this kind of initiatives or investments, no, sometimes the regulatory environment somehow impedes, no, the potential opportunities for this. Do you think, Attorney, the President could really do something about that when it comes to, especially po pag mga LGU na, no? Kasi minsan yung maybe hindi masyadong nakikita ngayon ng mga kababayan natin, pero marami pong negosyo ang mas nahihirapan po sa LGU regulation kaysa po sa national regulation.
Tama yan. At tamang direksyon yung solar. Environment friendly because of global efficiency and technology. Mura.
Opo.
Pero it's not just about mura at efficient na solar panels. Kinakailangan nakakabit yan dun sa distribution network. So kung hindi maayos yan at dadaan pa rin sa mga monopolya at yung mga co-op na inefficient, magiging papatungan din yan ng cost of distribution. So madadilute yung advantage. But hindi lang ho yung red tape, yung ease of doing business, which is very correct, no? Ang isang disincentive yan, yung corruption, Kasi ang corruption sa ating bayan, na-democratize na, Hindi lang naman big time na flood control na trilyones, Doon sa barangay, hihingi si barangay captain, hihingi si mayor, si governor, si congressman.
May layers.
So, yung small players na sinasabi ni Professor, dapat yan open sa lahat, hindi nakakapag-compete kasi yung mga big time lang na may political backer ang pwedeng sabihin, oy, kalahati lang hingin mo kasi may backer ako mas malaki sa'yo. Pero yung ordinaryong mga medium, small scale solar panel operator sana, hindi nila kayang gawin yun. So they are subjected not only to the bureaucratic red tape and delay, which is very costly already, yung petty corruption din sa lahat. Yung pagnenegosyo, lahat ng permit, hihingan ka, kasama na rin dyan yung fire department, electrician, sanitation, kung ano-ano, maliit lang naman yung negosyo mo. So, yan, kaya ng presidente yan. He doesn't need new laws. Kasi chief executive siya. Doon niya sana ipakita yung political will niya. Na mapapasunod ba niya yung mga governor, mga mayor, mga konseho, mga barangay kapitan. Kaya niya kasi siya yung kanyang boss, chief executive.
I think for me po, Attorney, no, isa po sa mga bagay po na parang medyo kulang din po. No? If you look at the whole energy sector, no, it's divided into four, even according to the IPIRA law. Generation, transmission, distribution, and the supply. No? Yung supply medyo parang baligtad kung saan nila nilagay. Sa uli nilagay, dapat doon sa una. So, well, anyway po, all of these things can be for us, no, for engineers, planners, this could be calculated na po, no. Meron naman po tayong projection when it comes to the population, yung demand po ng mga residential, industrial, and of course, kung ano po yung direction natin when it comes to what what industries are we trying to develop and what is the energy requirement of these things, no? And I think dun po yung parang medyo parang kulang, no? Parang we would like to tap solar and nuclear, but of course there are other sources of energy naman po na available din po dito sa ating bansa na talagang mayaman po tayo, no? Yung geothermal source, when I was young, talagang very high po yan. Even tidal, no? There are other countries that actually harnesses na yung tidal power. And of course, Ilocos is very proud of its windmills. Okay. So sa ano po ninyo, sir, ano pa po yung is this just a highlighting of a specific project, or this could be a policy pronouncement already on the part of the president? Professor?
I think it's political.
Oh, wow.
It's political. It's, an approach to really, show an optics to ease the burden of the Filipino people. Because if you look at it, it's long term. And you must be able to master enough political will. Given the consideration, the time that you have, would this be done in a year and a half? He has technically, several months or more than a year. So, how will you be able to say na, let's amend and so on and so forth? So, it's legacy building, but the question there is, will his time in office enough? Will he start and lay down the foundation and would say na, ito yung future direction natin? So, I think it's really political because if you notice, most of his pronouncement, it's like trying to say to the public that, hey, my administration is responsive, we've done something. Yun yung gusto niyang sabihin may ginawa kami dun sa flood control, may nagawa kami dun sa crisis sa Middle East, at ito, para sa middle class, yung pag-ayos natin sa kuryente kasi tinatamaan ng lahat ng Pilipino. So, it's really political in nature if you're going to ask me.
Attorney Cayosa?
Well, to me, of course, you're correct, political will. Pero pagdating kasi sa power sector, tama ka, you can actually calculate it, the most efficient way, even the mix.
Opo.
At ang isang aspeto dyan na napakahalaga ngayon, lalong-lalo na sa mga pinagdaraanan natin, power sector is a part of the security sector.
Yes po.
Kasi yung konsepto ng pagsasakop o yung konsepto ng giyera ngayon, hindi na lang po yung barilan
Opo.
Yes.
Kung yung power sector mo kontrolado ng iilan lang o ng banyaga o kaya yung supply chain sa lahat, anong
Yes.
klase ng power generating project that yung supply chain nakasalalay sa ibang bansa, pwede kanilang isabotahe at hawak ka sa liig kasi yung energy is very crucial in any country's life, di ba? AI man yan, transportation, lahat. So, at pati yung consumer, yung namamayan. So, to me, dapat pagtuunan din nila saan ba nanggagaling itong mga gagamitin natin to generate power. Can we produce it ourselves? Meron ba tayong supply chain risks? Lalong-lalo na, siyempre very aggressive yung mga naunang mayayaman na bansa So part of their strategy to remain ahead of us and to exploit us, yung pag-control nila sa ating power sector. Yun ang hindi masyadong natatalakay. But I think it's important for us to bring it to the public fora. Para sa ganun, maging aware na there is a great security component of the power sector.
Thank you po, Attorney. After the break, we'll discuss the President's proposed tax relief measures for the middle class and what they could mean for workers, businesses, and the economy. Stay with us. The PH Insider on TV will be right back.
Sometimes in our lives, when things go wrong, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, I do what's right. We know that there's always tomorrow. I give my best. I keep caring. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be
My
your
friend
friend.
from the Philippines.
Thank you.
I'll help you carry on. I am Charm. I am the Philippines. Lean on me.
Hi! Ako po si Fiona Gicale. Inaanyayahan ko po kayong manood ng D8 Patrol tuwing Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 5:30 ng hapon hanggang alas 6 ng gabi. Tampok ang mga malalaki at pinakamainit na balita sa bawat sulok ng mundo. Lahat ng pangyayari ihatid sa inyo na may malinaw na impormasyon. Dito lamang yan sa D8 Patrol.
Amid the continuing impact of the Middle East conflict and the global economic uncertainty, President Marcos proposed a series of tax reforms, including expanding the income tax exemption to workers earning $350,000 or less annually, as well as a tax amnesty for certain unpaid taxes. The big question is, will these measures provide real relief to Filipinos while keeping government finances sustainable? Ito, attorney, medyo ano po ako, no, medyo mag-ano lang po sa personal experience ko. In law school, isa po sa hindi mga favorite subject yan is tax law. Not because, number one, because of the details of it. No? Second, if you look at the reality of it, sabi nga ng professor namin, from the cradle to the grave, no? Talagang you're affected by tax. No? Kumpara po natin sa mga katabi po nating mga bansa. Paano po nyo ma-describe po ang tax level or even yung taxing rate dito po sa bansa natin? Anyone?
Well, ako recently I saw that there's a commentary about the tax rates that are imposed on Filipinos. Sabi nila, we are taxed as if we were a first-class country, but the services we receive are third-class.
Oh, wow.
It's
That's a very sad commentary.
a sad snapshot of how the people feel. Because lalong-lalo na sa mga pamilya na talagang nakita nila yung payslip nila, makita yung withholding tax, yung amount na yan ay mararamdaman nila. That amount could have been spent for food, for perhaps provision for medicine or for some leisure, pero napupunta sa buwis, only for us to hear in the news of so many politicians receiving boxes. Ngayon, maleta na.
Literally stealing the money.
Yes, yes. So it's a sad state na sana ay talagang matugunan. So whatever the President mentioned during the SONA, yung extending the tax exemption, granting tax amnesties, I think as long as these are truly felt by the Filipino people, by the Filipino family, these are all welcome and are to be supported. Kasi kailangan, lalong-lalo na we are in the period of crisis. Actually, nakakatawa, no? Nung the day that the President delivered the SONA, kinabukasan tumaas yung presyo ng langis. So, I mean, hopeful siya, but we look at reality, we look at day-to-day life. Much has to be done, there's much room for improvement.
Opo. Well, attorney, alam niyo po, very few presidents would really try to come up with tax cuts, no? Normally, ang ina-announce po dyan is proposed tax legislation, no? Taxation legislation po, no? Konting-konti po sa natatandaan ko ang mga presidente na magde-dare na magbaba po ng buwis kasi nga po doon sa malaking impact po nito doon sa budget po, no? And at the same time, no? Ang maraming tao po, kaya nga po sinasabi po ninyo na para tayong first world taxation but third world services, is that one agency or office in government which can be considered as a flagship of corruption is the BIR and the taxing unit of the local government units. No? And this is something that, again, very important po dun sa call ng President na against corruption. No? Hindi lang po sa flood control. Yung flood control parang ano yan eh. Kumbaga sa ang daming gumagawa ng masama, bigla lang sumobra tong isa na to na mali-maleta at kahon-kahon na po yung pera. No? But if you look at the taxing, the internal revenue offices of the country, marami pong corruption po dyan. No? And I think, much as we would like to welcome this, kayo po, attorney, ano po bang personal experience po ninyo sa ganito po, in terms of taxation po?
Well, pag you're an honest taxpayer, mahihirapan ka magbayad ng tax. Kailangan masaya lahat. Ibig sabihin, masaya yung BIR, masaya yung fixer, masaya yung taxpayer kasi mas kukonti ang kanyang binayaran.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
You're in the business of being happy.
Oo, masaya din yung gobyerno kasi at least meron siyang konting nakuha.
Opo.
So, yun, it again goes back to corruption.
Opo.
Pero yung bureaucracy, BIR, Customs, LGU, kontrolado ng executive. By administrative power or discipline, pwede niyang wakasan yan eh.
Opo.
Like, he doesn't even need Congress to do that because yung pagbabalasa sa bureaucracy, pag administrative yan in nature, you don't need a new law. So, kaya niya. So, sana may narinig tayo tungkol dyan. Pangalawa, ito rin, kung minsan, it's not really the tax rate o yung incident ng taxation. Ang mas importante sa taong bayan at totoong makakatulong sa nakakaraming mahihirap, yung equitable distribution of the tax burden.
Opo.
So, tignan mo, ang daming mahihirap, 80% mahihirap, 20% mayayaman, yung mayaman at dumadami yung mayaman at yung hindi naman nag-trickle down ang benefits sa kuwan. So, yung nga, ang nangyayari, dahil hindi masyadong mataas yung tax bracket ng mga super mayaman, kukunti yung pinaghahatiang serbisyo ng maliliit na nakakarami. Plus, tanggalin mo pa ang 40% yan sa korupsyon.
Opo.
So, talagang double murder ang nangyayari.
Opo,
Diba?
opo.
So, inefficiency in tax collection, inequality, yung tawag nito, walang equity dapat yan yung mas mataas ang burden nung mas mayaman kaysa mahihirap. Yung
Tama
excise tax, yung mga taxes sa mga basic goods, pare-pareho, mahirap o mayaman. So, and then, yung corruption. So, iyan, dapat kasama sa package.
Opo.
We welcome mga tax relief, mga ganyan, mga tax amnesties, tax exemption, okay yan.
Opo.
Panandalian. Pero, hindi rin yan magiging effective long-term kung wala nga yung combination ng equity, yung tax efficiency collection, at saka yung anti-corruption drive.
Opo. Actually, attorney, I would even dare say na yung pong mayayaman ay hindi na po 20%. Less than that po. Pag tiningnan niyo po yung profile po ng mga listahan ng mga sinasabi nating ultra-rich dito po sa ating bansa. Pero what appears is that we are not taxing the wealthy enough, but we're taxing the middle income so much already, no? So parang you're taxing hard work, you're not taxing wealth, no? Parang I think that should be a source of policy shift, no, pagdating po sa bansa natin. Because there are other countries na talaga pong mataas po ang tax rate doon po sa certain level of wealth, no? Mataas na po yung tax nila. Do you think that's workable for us?
Well,
Professor Eric, at
yes.
least baka hindi sa presidente na to, baka sa susunod na presidente.
Well, it's really possible na it can be done. Gusto ko yung binigyan ng emphasis ni Attorney kayo sa kanina na yung equitability. We have to come up with an equitable formula na talagang mafe-feel ng middle. And more importantly, kayang-kaya ng mga magagaling natin na mambabatas. Yung manner ng kung paano ito ipapatupad at nakikita ng taong bayan na saan napupunta yung pinaghihirapan nila. So, yun yung masakit dito eh. Lumalaban ka ng parehas. Just like what Attorney made mention a while ago, no? Lumalaban ka ng parehas, nagtatrabaho ka, tapos makikita mo sa news, mali-maleta, sako-sako, o kung ano man yung lalagyan. Parang nanglalambot ka eh. Kasi parang, ano ba to, hindi parehas yung laban. Yun yung nakaka-demoralize dun sa mga kababayan natin. Ikalawa, yung kung paano sana yung pagsusumikap na mapababa yung pagkain, yung access to food and yung cost ng food. Kasi kung hindi gumagalaw ng mataas o nag-i-improve yung sweldo mo, pero yung access mo sa pagkain, kasi mura yung pagkain, yun laban ka sana. Pero hindi tumataas lahat. May trickle-down effect. Pagtaas ng gasolina, yung food chain, supply chain mo, hanggang sa transportation cost, lahat may trickle-down effect. So, ano pang kakainin mo? Kaya nga, pansinin niyo Attorney, Sir Romel, minsan pagpupunta ka, observa mo sa supermarket, pag mamimili ka sa supermarket, ang makikita mo na mas dinadampot nung iba, more on pansit canton yung mas marami. Kasi yun yung mura. Pagkakasyahin siya basically doon sa budget. So, mas makikita mo, mas paliit na ng paliit yung mga binibenta ngayon na mga dilata. Sachet. So, dito ka lang nakakita ng tingi-tingi sa atin na retail talaga. Kasi, it's an issue now of affordability in the purchasing power of our mga kababayans.
Meron pong pag tiningnan niyo po yung buong supply chain po, ng bansa natin. Ang isa sa main culprit po ng pagtaas po ng presyo diyan, if we attribute corruption to an agency, is the Bureau of Customs po. I'm not against any particular official po or office, but what I'm saying is we have seen this na the Bureau of Customs has always been included in those offices na mataas po ang corruption. No? And of course, kung titingnan po naman natin, siyempre, kung ano man po yung gawin nila ron, talaga pong apektado naman po yung buong bansa. Imagine, for example, you're paying before, let's say, you're paying 30,000 to 50,000 per container para mailabas mo siya. Magmula doon sa bansang pinanggalingan. And then all of a sudden, it becomes 120,000. Of course, the one importing that product will not just say, sige, I'll just bear this because, I commiserate with the situation of the rest of the country and I'll just absorb all of these losses. The businessman will not do that. Di ba? Tama po? And I think that should be part of one of the policy lookout din po ng not just on corruption, but yung really coming up with an ecosystem doon po sa customs na talagang it will not just minimize, talagang totally eradicate. There have been a lot of measures already doon po sa customs, for example lang. No? Example po lang po to, nagkataon lang po tayo ng ganito, na there was even an idea na tanggalan ng drawer yung mga table, magkaroon ng uniform na walang bulsa. Why? Why are we even talking about these things, no? I mean, the process, the transparency itself of the process should dissuade people from committing corruption, di ba? And the president's initiative, no matter how noble it is, no, it has to, as you mentioned, it has to trickle down to the lowest offices of the government po, no. And as a final note po, Attorney Cayosa, how do you think that this pronouncement on corruption and of course itong tax relief would actually be defined in the remaining 2 years of the president po?
Well, there will be immediate relief. So, maganda yun. At least na-address yung panandali ang pagkangailangan. Pero ako, all of this discussion, especially sa tax and corruption, kahit anong gawin mong reforma sa baba, tanggalin lahat ng drawer, computerize mo, it's still the system of accountability. It's still the justice system. Dapat nga, ang sinabihan niya, Chief Justice, nandito ka naman, pwede ho pa babilisin natin mga kaso, walang nadidribon at madisisyon. Kasi nga, kahit sinong, human nature kasi yung to be greedy eh. So kahit anong sistema, kung alam nila na kung ako'y makakalusot dito at nakanakaw ako, kahit ihabla ako, kaya kong ambunan lahat, madidribble-dribble, malilimutan at hindi ako mananagot, kahit anong sistema, meron pa rin gagawa. So it should be justice bilis. Kaya nangyayari kasi it's either justice tiis o justice bili. So yun ang problema natin. But kahit sa anong bansa, kung maayos ang kanilang justice, kasi rule of law tayo eh.
Opo.
We have enough rules, we have enough laws. Pero sa enforcement, kinakailangan merong maghuhusga. Yun ang weakness naming mga abogado. Mabagal ang ating justice system.
Opo.
Unless we can do something about that, the culture of impunity
Opo.
that fuels corruption, abuse, and inefficiency will remain. Kasi nga, hindi napapanagot.
Well said, Attorney. Attorney Joel?
Yes, I think one of the critical issues that surfaced from this discussion is the long-term problem of corruption. And the fact that it's a long-term problem tells us that it requires long-term solutions. So all of these strong pronouncements from the government, perhaps stronger anti-corruption laws may work for a time, but what has to be done is a deep-rooted change in how we address the problem of corruption. For me, it's not just a legal, political, policy problem, but ultimately it's a human, moral problem that has to be addressed through values education, through good example from our leaders, from our elders, from our parents. And if we start, as you mentioned earlier, Romel, I like that you brought it up. If we start in the family, then slowly but surely, little by little, this can be addressed. You know, there's a philosopher who said that as the family goes, so goes the nation, and so goes the whole world in which we live in. So if we know that these big problems have been here for a long time, we have to undertake long-term solutions beginning in our most intimate circle of influence, our families.
Thank you, Attorney. Professor?
Sir Roman, more prayers. More prayers. Prayers to our leaders, to our lawmakers, to our president. Prayers in such a way that, you know, they will succeed and they will do good, to do what is right and to always do what is good. Yun yung gawin yung tama at saka gawin yung mabuti para sa taong bayan. Kasi as it is, they're rooting na to fail, for the president to fail, and so on and so forth. Hindi, kasi ang failure niya, failure natin lahat. Hindi yun maganda rin din. As it is, we're not in a good place. So, let's i-boost natin dito yung pagiging optimistic natin. At i-channel natin lahat yung energies natin on the road to 2028 to feel and to vote basically rightful leaders.
On that note, I have the same sentiment. I think I hope the president in the next in his last SONA would say something about the character, the qualification of his successor, because I think we have seen this very starkly on the part of the Senate. No, we have seen there four group of families. We have 2 members of their families there. I'm not necessarily against relatives in government, but in this particular case, there is about 140 million of us. There's only 24 in the Senate. I think this country deserves the best of the best when it comes to the Senate. The House of Representatives is more on the local, regional, so they can send in anybody there that they think should represent their values, their culture, their visions, their aspirations. But as to the Senate, I think the 24 should reflect what the whole country needs. Right, Attorney?
Level up dapat.
Yeah, and I hope the President could say something in his last SONA regarding this matter. Tonight, we heard the promises. Tomorrow, the nation will demand results. In politics, speeches may inspire, but it is action that defines leadership and accountability that builds public trust. I'm Romel Miranda. This has been the PH Insider on TV. Good night.